Hello, we're back with the Bronze Age of Radio. I'm sorry for the delay getting our guest on the line, but I think we have Richard Janczarski there. Are you there? Richard? Richard, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, you're the, first and foremost, the webmaster of the Cubic AO website.
Yeah, I'm the webmaster of cubicao.tk.
So
and,
go on.
I established the website several years ago, or a few years ago at this stage, about 3 years, and I've been updating it and spreading the time cube.
Now, so maybe I think we should go in a little bit to what the time cube is and what you're spreading on the website, and then some of the ramifications that you've got from having this site.
Exactly, yeah.
So now, it was about a year ago that we interviewed Gene Ray himself on this show, the discoverer of the time cube. So maybe you could remind our listeners what exactly the time cube describes.
Right, well, the time cube is rationally proven to be the absolute truth of the universe. It's the theory of everything. It describes the fundamental geometry, the fundamental physics of the universe. There are 4 simultaneous states within a single rotation of Earth, and time is cubic, not linear. And this has ramifications on humanity to the point where it is necessary to apply time cube in order to save humanity. Only through time cube, only through the great wisdom and knowledge of the time cube, can humanity be saved from self-destruction.
What exactly is going to destroy humanity, and how can the time cube stop it?
Well, at present, we're seeing a lot of natural resources depletion. We're seeing the entire overpopulated civilization consuming natural resources at an unprecedentedly huge rate. We're seeing the rapid usage of oil, for instance. We're going to run into a peak oil situation soon. I believe that 2005 was the year of global peak oil, and once all the oil runs out in a few years, what's going to happen? There's all this machinery, all the farming machinery, for instance, producing the food is dependent on oil, and so, we're just going to run into huge problems as a civilization. It's probably going to cause cannibalism, and unless people can use the time cube to achieve natural harmony and a lifestyle of natural harmony, they're just going to continue using up all these resources, and civilization's just going to bomb out. Probably the nuclear bombs are going to be used, and it's all going to be a complete disaster. So I think at this point in the history of humanity, it's really necessary to begin applying time cube. It's necessary to kind of get this cubic knowledge applied across this huge population of millions, billions of people worldwide. And that really is the key strategy towards saving humanity.
So how do we apply it, the fact that there are 4 simultaneous days going on right now?
Well, for instance, a lot of people they've occupied their corners, their respective corners on Earth, and they haven't strayed far from those corners for millennia, but now in the past, century or two, there's been a lot of immigration, there's been a lot of population growth, population boom. I mean, you have to take into account, the Industrial Revolution was only 2 centuries ago, and that caused a population boom, and then all the developments following that, all the kind of mass production of living necessities and so forth, and drugs to, stop people from dying from illness and so forth. That's caused even more population growth. And I mean, if people return to their original corners instead of causing race mixing in the USA and mixing white with black and white with colour and so forth, if they return to their original corners, that would certainly relate to the time cube's 4 corners, and that will be one good strategy of improving humanity's chances of survival in the years ahead.
Mm-hmm. Now, you proved the time cube rationally, is that correct? And that's up on the Cubic AO site?
So on Cubic AO, I have a time cube proof page, and it contains a 64-step proof which quite clearly, rationally proves the time cube, and it proves all the main points like the 4 days, the fact that time is cubic, the fact that 4 is the supreme number of the universe, and various other aspects also relating to a time cube in nature, a time cube in humanity, that kind of thing. It basically proves all the main points in a very clear and perspicuous manner.
How did you come upon Time Cube? You found Dr. Ray's site, I imagine, and you started reading it? Or
Yeah, I've known about Time Cube for about over 5 years now. Back in 2002, I think it was, I first came across timecube.com. I listened to some of the radio interviews that Dr. Ray had done back then, and basically I began discussing Time Cube on various Time Cube related internet forums. There were a few websites, a few forums relating to Time Cube at the time, and I began discussing it, and eventually I gained so much cubic wisdom and knowledge that I felt the need to create the Cubic AO website in order to kind of consolidate and present all of that knowledge that I'd gathered, and so that was really the genesis of the Cubic AO site.
Is there a large internet presence for cubicists?
Is there a large internet presence? Well, I mean, there are a few things going on. There's been a lot of discussion. A lot of people have emailed Dr. Ray. He's had a lot of email discussions. Some of them, he used to forward them to his mailing list, so I saw a lot of his email discussions. I mean, various people have started up various websites, and so I mean, there's been a lot of discussion relating to TimeCube occurring over the years, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, maybe you can go into you've been an activist for TimeCube in your area, right? And this has caused a certain amount of resistance on the part of the university you were attending?
Yeah, that's right. I was attending Swinburne University in the city of Melbourne in Australia, and basically they suspended me. They suspended me from the university for various reasons, primarily due to my involvement in spreading the Time Cube at the university, because I had been spreading the Time Cube amongst the students at the university. And so they suspended me for 2 weeks. They referred me to the police, but the police didn't do anything because I hadn't really committed any crime. So, I mean, they called me in for a disciplinary hearing, and they questioned me for about 1.5 hours, and following that, they readmitted me to the university, but they changed my enrolment, so it was on a distance education basis, and I couldn't attend any lectures at the university, couldn't attend classes, tutorials. Basically, it was severely limited, so I had to study via distance education arrangement over the website and via postal mail and that kind of thing. So they took a lot of action against me, ultimately, in regards to my involvement in spreading the Time Cube.
And you think this just came out of their feeling threatened by the Time Cube ideas, which are often pointing at academics as being stupid and evil?
Well, yeah, it's possible. I mean, I can't say for sure because they were reserved in giving me this kind of information. That I got the feeling that that they were only telling me the parts of it that they wanted me to hear, and there were things that they had discussed amongst themselves that they weren't really telling me. But yeah, they may have indeed felt threatened, and I think this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the academic resistance to Time Cube. They want to suppress the Time Cube. They do not want Time Cube to be known to their students because it contradicts what they're teaching.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jean Ray has been invited to speak at certain universities, but and this is a university radio station, but you don't find a lot of awareness of Time Cube most of the time at universities. Now, when I show the Time Cube site to people, they often find it a little bit hard to understand or confusing. What do you think would be the easiest way to get a handle on what exactly the ideas are about?
Right. Well, I mean that's part of what my Cubic AO site is about. If they read timecube.com and they have a bit of difficulty, maybe they can look at Cubic AO because I basically present much of the same material that's on timecube.com, but I use a different format. I use a lot of illustrations and graphics and diagrams and that kind of thing. So my Cubic AO site will certainly help them to understand the Time Cube. And there are, as far as radio interviews are concerned, Dr. Ray's done many of them over the years. I'll probably at some stage upload some of the MP3 files I have archived, because Dr. Ray's done a lot of interviews. And even this year, a few months ago, I visited Dr. Ray in the USA. I visited him at his home over the course of several days. I took a lot of video, and soon I'm going to be releasing some of that video on YouTube. I'm going to be uploading some of that videos. I'm going to be editing it together, uploading it to YouTube so that people can watch it. So, I mean, there's certainly a lot of auxiliary kind of media out there to help people understand the time cube, and so I think just as long as they put a bit of effort into understanding it, they shouldn't have too much difficulty, and they should be able to achieve this kind of level of cubic wisdom, which is, of course, what we're aiming for.
Now, Dr. Ray is, of course, the wisest human. Now, you are the second wisest human?
Yeah, that's right. I am the second wisest human on Earth. Dr. Ray proclaimed me the second wisest human during the events of this Kangaroo Inquisition, this disciplinary hearing and suspension that occurred at Swinburne University. And I'm the second wisest human on Earth, and I'm making a big effort to spread Time Cube on Cubic AO, and to spread Time Cube in any way I can in order to do my duty to humanity as the second wisest human. And I've got a few things planned when I get around to them. At least I'm going to make more expansions and so forth, and so there's definitely plenty of things that I'm going to be that I have done and that I will be doing as part of my duty to humanity, to my humanity fellowship, as I might call it, as the second wisest human.
Now, maybe you can just briefly help us understand some of the concept of time cube that a lot of people have trouble with. For instance, Dr. Ray asserts that -1 times -1 equals +1 is stupid and evil. How would that be evil?
So if you consider under the academic mathematical viewpoint, it's a kind of single corner singularity viewpoint, because you have the equation +1 times +1 equals +1, but then you have the equation -1 times -1 also equals +1, and it kind of creates a bias towards positive, and I've explained it in greater mathematical detail on Cubic AO, but suffice to say that kind of bias towards positive, and that failure to kind of include the kind of balance between the opposites of negative and positive, it basically violates the time cube principle of opposites, and it creates a kind of singularity, single corner bias, and that's something we see in academia. Like we see the singularity, the single corner kind of thing, and it's really this kind of singularity viewpoint that at the moment is depleting natural resources, destroying humanity, and brainwashing humans with religion and with deceptive single corner academic doctrine. So I mean, it extends way beyond those mere mathematical equations, but certainly those mathematical equations with their bias towards positive are part of the problem, and they should be rectified.
Mm-hmm. How exactly also is word evil? Because there's a lot of talking about how word is evil.
Well, Dr. Jean Ray has said many times that word is a counterfeit and fictitious representation of natural values, and it just gets to the point where it gets to the point where humans are valuing word above reality. They're valuing word above action. They're valuing word above, observation of natural truth, and word is being used for deception. Word is being used for brainwashing. Politicians are liars. They're using words to brainwash people, and so I mean, just this counterfeit kind of vacuous, inane, if you like, this kind of property of words, a kind of lack of inherent truth value. This is causing a major problem for humanity, and it's a big source of humanity's problems. Take the Bible, that's full of word lies, and that's propagated through millions of people. Huge numbers of people are now believing this counterfeit and fictitious kind of deceptive brainwashing that religion propagates. So certainly word is causing a huge social problem, we might say, these days. Huge problem for civilization.
Mm-hmm. What would be the first basic steps we could take to integrating time cube into our lives?
Well, I mean, I think the first step is spreading it so that many people know it, and then after that, I guess it's a matter of maybe overthrowing the governments and creating some kind of anarchy, because I think ultimately things are going to work better that way if you have a government that's kind of like a singularity controlling all the people. And so if you get rid of the governments, you get rid of the politicians, people are going to probably just naturally, just by their own natural instincts, be inclined to achieve something more towards the idea of a cubic natural harmony. But it's going to be difficult with all the weapons, all the nuclear bombs and so forth. It's going to be certainly going to be difficult dismantling this huge global political system that's currently at the forefront of this kind of degenerative movement that's destroying all the natural resources and brainwashing people and so forth. So, I mean, it's going to be difficult, but I guess ultimately the first practical step might be getting rid of the governments. So I guess that's something that definitely needs to be considered.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you spread TimeCube over there, what do you think it was about this kind of message of harmony that was causing so much anger on the part of people that you had to be removed from the university?
Well, because it's contradicting what they're teaching. I mean, they I don't know if they pretend to be teaching any kind of harmony, but they don't want the TimeCube to be known, because ultimately they are part of this singularity movement, and ultimately this is what they're aligned with as far as their doctrines and their viewpoints are concerned, and so it just gets to the point where academia is a singularity, religion is a singularity, the governments are a singularity, they're all teaching the singularity God, the singularity doctrines and so forth, and they're opposed to TimeCube, and so it just gets to the point where academia just fundamentally from what we might consider its fundamental doctrinal viewpoint, it wants to deceive, it wants to brainwash, it wants to exercise mind control over people, and as such it doesn't want TimeCube to be known. TimeCube would set people free from the scourge, the kind of scourge-like influence and the brainwashing of academia. TimeCube is key and the pathway to human freedom and human salvation.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me remind our listeners at this point that you're listening to WHRW 90.5 FM, Binghamton, New York. And we have Richard Janczarski here from cubicao.tk, Cubic Awareness Online website, where you can learn all about the TimeCube theories propounded by Dr. Jean Ray. Now, the Earth is a 4-day simultaneous TimeCube. And according to Dr. Ray and Cubic AO, when people preach information that goes contrary to this, it's evil.
Yeah.
How? Why exactly would it be evil as opposed to just maybe misguided or incorrect?
Well, it is misguided. It is incorrect. I think ultimately people, for instance, I've talked about academia and the fact that academia is opposed to the TimeCube. I think a lot of the time people are speaking against TimeCube, not just out of error, but out of malicious desire to suppress the TimeCube, because they believe in religion. They want to preach the false Jewish created word God, but they want to control people's minds, and so it gets to the point where they are very often engaging in an intentional kind of evil agenda to suppress the TimeCube. So sometimes people are in error, sometimes they're misguided, but I think more often they're evil. They are engaging in the evil that currently they're kind of propagating and spreading the evil that currently enslaves all of humanity. And so, there's a lot of evil out there. There's a lot of evil acting against the propagation and the knowledge of TimeCube. We have to be cautious, and we have to ultimately take some kind of effort to expunge and eliminate this evil, because if it continues much further, it's just going to destroy humanity. And, TimeCube is the pinnacle of humanity's achievement. I find it's the pinnacle of humanity's scientific and logical and rational knowledge. And Dr. Jean Ray is the greatest thinker and wisest human. I have a lot of respect for him. There have been a few disagreements. He has disagreed with some of what I'm doing, but ultimately he is the greatest thinker, he is the wisest human, and people should respect him for what he has achieved. His quite astounding time cube discovery. And when that happens, maybe we'll see some change. And it'll be an awful shame for humanity to just descend and decline and kind of extinguish itself after, having discovered the time cube. It'll be an awful shame if humanity, after having, kind of briefly witnessed the time cube, just, descends into cannibalism and non-existence and so forth, So humanity really has the choice to survive, perpetuate, and evolve into the Superman, or to undergo a cubeless doom, cubeless Armageddon.
Mm-hmm. What kind of disagreements have you had with Dr. Ray? And why would he disagree with someone who's spreading the word of the time cube?
Well, I didn't disagree with Dr. Ray so much. It was just that he disagreed with some of what I was doing. He had a few objections to my Cubic AO website. I made a few changes in response to his objections. For instance, there was a category on Cubic AO called Time Cube Theory, and it had a logo, a symbol that to Dr. Ray it looked too much like a triangle. So, and he didn't like the name Time Cube Theory because he said that the time cube is not a theory, but is a cubic creation principle by which humanity and nature exists. So, I ended up changing the name of that category to Time Cube Principle, and I changed the symbol or the logo to kind of more, so something that looks like a cube. So that's the logo you see on there now. And I put on some disclaimers relating to Occam's razor because Dr. Ray was concerned that religious zealots might use Occam's razor to make claims in support of God. So I made disclaimers making it clear that Occam's razor actually rejects God as a kind of superfluous, supernatural kind of something that needs to be rejected, something that can't be rationally considered to exist within reality. But Dr. Ray still had some objections. There's an orange disclaimer up the top of all the Cubic AO pages and articles now, and that addresses some of Dr. Ray's objections. But he still has disagreements with me over these matters. So it reaches the point where he has some disagreements with me. But nevertheless, I still support everything he's doing. I support timecube.com. I think, Dr. Ray is a true genius and someone we should all admire. So my admiration for Dr. Ray hasn't really decreased as a result of any of it.
And personally, you're on good terms because you met him recently. Is that so?
Yeah, the disagreements actually... he began disagreeing with me after looking at my Cubic AO website. I think it was maybe about a month ago or something. So after I met him, he actually began disagreeing with me.
Okay.
So yeah, there have been a few problems, I guess. But anyway, I've from my point of view, I've taken care to make necessary modifications and disclaimers on Cubic AO to address Dr. Ray's concerns. So I think I've done what I can, and I mean, I don't entirely understand why Dr. Ray continues to disagree with me, but I respect Dr. Ray, and from my point of view, my Cubic AO site is intended to complement. It's kind of an auxiliary complement to the Time Cube site. It's serving as a kind of secondary resource for people to learn about the Time Cube. And I think, ultimately I hope what I'm doing will help to kind of support Dr. Ray's endeavours, support his purpose. So I hope that, I'll succeed in supporting him. I think I've done pretty well so far, and I'm hoping to continue with that noble cubic endeavour.
You're still the second wisest human, so you can't be doing very much wrong. When we look at the time cube in the 4 simultaneous days, a lot of the institutions that we have as a people are definitely going against that, like time zones and a lot of things that are not cubed, like pyramids that are built in different parts of the world. Do you think things like pyramids should be torn down and cubes built?
Well, actually, Dr. Ray views the Great Pyramid in Egypt as quite a cubically compliant kind of monument. He often talks about the four corners and four cornerstones of the Great Pyramid.
Because in four sides.
Oh, yep. Yeah, so he views the four corners and four cornerstones of the Great Pyramid as representing the arms and legs extending down to the hands and feet, that kind of thing. And he even speculates that the Great Pyramid might not have been constructed by humans. It might have been created by some kind of cubic force. I don't know if that's true. I'm more inclined to think that maybe humans built it, but who knows? Maybe back in ancient Egypt they had a lot of geometric kind of knowledge going on there, so maybe they had what we might call an incipient understanding of nature's time cube back in ancient Egypt. And so it's all very fascinating, and I think if you even consider geometrically there are 5 platonic solids: the tetrahedron, the cube, the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron. And I have a page on Cubic.io explaining how the figure known as the Metatron's cube allows the cube to be used to kind of derive geometrically the other 4 platonic solids. And if you even consider just in relation to pyramids, the octahedron is the dual of the cube. It's the dual if you exchange faces for vertices in a cube, you get an octahedron. And if you slice an octahedron in half along its middle, you get a square pyramid like what you see in Egypt. So I think the pyramids are definitely geometrically related to the cube, and I think they're a fine kind of cubic monument built by a mysterious and awe-inspiring ancient civilization.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about cubic art? Is that the cubist art form? Is that more in harmony with the time cube?
Well, yeah, in a way it is, because I think cubist artists like Picasso, they aim to kind of represent the subject, or the subject of their paintings. They aim to represent the subject as though you were looking at it from all possible angles, so you're not limited by one kind of single corner perspective. You're instead seeing it from all angles, and that's kind of like transcending the one corner perspective to have a 4-corner simultaneous perspective. So in a way, the cubist artists are kind of, it's as though they were aiming to transcend that single corner singularity perspective. So I think in a way that can be viewed as quite cubic, kind of artistic expression of the cubic thought in a way. I think that is quite cubic.
Yeah. Before we go, I want to just get into a little bit how cubicism is superior to religion. Dr. Ray says on his site, "You snotbrains will know hell for ignoring time cube." Is hell a real concept? He says that Earth life is heaven and hell. So obviously, Dr. Ray totally repudiates all religion. He doesn't believe in supernatural heaven. He doesn't believe in hell. He doesn't believe in any kind of God. Clearly, and obviously, he rejects all of that religion. But I think he's talking about more like a hell on earth. I think that's what he's talking about. Hell on earth. That kind of metaphor for the kind of Armageddon that could be coming up. So I think if you take it in context, that's definitely what he means. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of talk about the way that you cannot procreate alone, because that is singular and that's one. You need another, but that's two. How does that become a cube with only two?
Well, it's a principle of opposites. The two, like the male and the female, they are opposites, and I guess between the opposites you get 4-corner rotations, like you get the 4-corner life cycles of baby, child, parent, grandparent. You get the 4-corner family rotation of father, mother, son, daughter, that kind of thing. So I mean, that's just big geometry. You have opposites, like for instance the north and south poles are opposites, and then between the opposites you get a corner rotation. So I mean, it's all explained not only on timecube.com but also on Cubic.io. There's kind of a principle of opposites and the 4-corner rotations and so forth. There's certainly the static kind of opposites, the two, but that is part of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, when he says that people who ignore timecube deserve to die, is that sort of to say that their deaths are coming and that it will be well deserved, or people should actually be killed for not accepting timecube?
Well, I mean, I guess it gets to the point where, you know, probably the best option is to kind of redirect them so that they end up accepting the time cube. But if they're not going to, if ultimately, you know, humanity finds itself on the spiral down towards, you know, extinction, then maybe it will get to the point where war breaks out, violence and killing occur, and, you know, maybe, you know, people will just need to, you know, take their knowledge of time cube to a more drastic level at that time. But I think, you know, at this stage, redirection is also an option, you know, redirecting people to make them cubically wise and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, another question. How was the world created cubically? Did it just come into being, or does evolution fit into time cube?
Well, I mean, Dr. Ray tends to disagree with evolution. He proposes an alternative cubic model, but on Cubic AO I present like the two models with the idea that, you know, maybe it was evolution that created life. There does seem to be a fair bit of evidence, fossil evidence in support of evolution, or maybe it was some other kind of creation. Maybe, you know, life came into being by some other kind of mechanism. But at any rate, I present the two models so that, you know, that they're both there for consideration. The two concepts that might be used to explain the creation of life, and I guess the creation of the planet Earth itself. It's created by opposites, created by some kind of rotational vortex, and it begins rotating and begins accumulating matter, and eventually it becomes a well-formed, you know, cubic kind of, cubic planet with cubic symmetry. And I guess originally it had a lot of volcanoes and molten kind of whatever, and then I guess the gases came out of it. The gases were produced by the volcanic processes, and the gases bubbled up to the surface, and they created an atmosphere, a gaseous atmosphere, primarily nitrogen and also the oxygen and so forth. And then I guess it all solidified, the crust solidified, and that allowed life to safely flourish on its surface. So I guess that explains the kind of geologic formation of the Earth.
Okay, and before we go, maybe you could just say something to a lot of people out there who might be listening about basically how you dealt with the kind of hatred you received for espousing the time cube, and how you dealt with the reaction that you got from Swinburne, because a lot of people might be afraid to be outspoken about time cube in their own settings or universities.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, I ended up saying to myself that, well, time cube is the most important thing, and, you know, I don't want to have to, you know, think that I should have to engage in this suppression of time cube in order to appease the university. So basically, when I went up there for the disciplinary hearing, I just spoke honestly. I said that yes, I support the time cube, and yes, I will continue to support the time cube. And, you know, I guess ultimately, I just had to have the courage and the you know, resolve to speak in support of time cube no matter what. And I think, you know, that's the kind of that's the kind of courageous attitude that many people will need in order to spread the time cube. And so I've certainly you know, had that level of commitment, and I hope that many other people will manage it too, because time cube is you know, a great cause. And we should all stand in support of this great cubic four-corner cause. I believe we should all stand in support of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, when they had a disciplinary hearing, what exactly did they say they were disciplining? I mean, what could they claim?
Well, it was primarily the time cube. I mean, there were a few other things. I don't think they revealed the full set of information that they had on me, but they made various claims. They said that, you know, some of the academics thought I, you know, looked at them wrong in the corridors, or I looked at them with a bad facial expression or something. So some of it was quite trivial, but I think it was primarily related to my involvement in spreading the time cube, really. And they did complain. For instance, there's a short film called Mem Recall available on my Cubic AO site, and that showed some explosions occurring as kind of Swinburne campus. But I mean, that was just a kind of fictitious, narrative, basically fictitious storyline. That wasn't, terrorism or anything. But at any rate, I ended up with the impression that it was primarily due to my involvement in spreading the Time Cube that they took that disciplinary action against me. It was primarily due to my spreading the Time Cube, because academia cannot allow the Time Cube to be known.
We should mention, actually, on YouTube there are several videos that you put up that our listeners can find. Where can our listeners find your videos on YouTube? What should they search for?
Oh, well, yeah, I have a few videos on YouTube. I mean, just go to YouTube and search for Time Cube, I guess, and you'll find them in there. And I have some videos available for download on the Cubic AO site also, so I have them there.
Okay, and the website is Cubic AO for Cubic Awareness Online, cubicao.tk.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you, Richard Janczarski, very much for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
I just like to encourage all the viewers to continue spreading Time Cube. Even Dr. Ray has recently written on timecube.com, I am organising children to join Cubic Army of 4 days to convert evil one-day adults to 4-day mentality existence to serve perpetual humanity. So Dr. Ray is certainly taking action. I'm taking action, and I want to encourage all your listeners to take action to spread the Time Cube truth. I even form a research group to research Time Cube, because that's what Dr. Ray's trying to or that's what he's trying to be. He has been trying to induce for several years. But anyway, I want to encourage all your listeners to learn about Time Cube, seek Time Cube, spread the Time Cube, because it's all about Time Cube. Let's think about Time Cube.
All right, thank you. Think about Time Cube.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Richard Janczarski, cubicao.tk. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And the website cubicao.tk for Richard Janczarski, and timecube.com for Dr. Gene Ray. This is WHRW Binghamton, the Bronze Age of Radio, and I'll be back after a few vitally important WHRW radio station announcements.